Deep in the heart of every Legend of Zelda game, there exists a golden triangle. 3 pieces joined as one, gleaming with divine light, holding within its geometry the power to shape reality itself. The Triforce. You've seen it emblazoned on shields, glowing on the backs of hands, hidden in sacred chambers. But what is this artifact really? And how does its nature change, or perhaps reveal itself, across the fractured timelines of Hyrule's history? The Triforce is more than just a powerful relic. It's the crystallized essence of creation itself, a fragment of the gods left behind when they departed this world. And yet, for all its constancy, for all its unchanging golden form, the Triforce tells a different story in each branch of Hyrule's splintered timeline. In one branch, it becomes a prize fought over endlessly, shattering and reforming in cycles of violence. In another, it splits as if by cosmic accident, distributing its power to those chosen by fate. In yet another, it sinks beneath an endless ocean, fragmented into 8 pieces, scattered across the depths. This isn't a tale of how the Triforce works, though we'll certainly explore that. This is a story about what the Triforce reveals about the nature of time itself, about destiny, about the balance between power, wisdom, and courage. Because in the Legend of Zelda, the Triforce doesn't just grant wishes. It reflects the heart of whoever touches it, and in doing so, it reflects the heart of entire timelines. Before we can understand how the Triforce differs across timelines, we need to understand what it was meant to be. We need to go back to the beginning, to the moment before time began. The creation myth, when gods walked upon chaos. Picture a void. Not darkness, because darkness implies the absence of light, and light had not yet been created. Not emptiness, because emptiness implies space, and space had not yet been defined. Just chaos. Pure, formless, infinite chaos. This was the world before the world, the canvas before the painting, the silence before the first note. Into this chaos descended 3 beings of unimaginable power. The golden goddesses, Din, Nayru, and Furore. They came from the heavens, from some distant nebula beyond mortal comprehension, and they came with purpose, to create, to bring order from chaos, to make something from nothing. Din came first, or perhaps they all came at once, and we simply speak of them in sequence because mortal minds require sequence. Din, the goddess of power, embodied in flame and earth. With her strong flaming arms, as the old legends tell, she cultivated the land. She took the formless chaos and gave it shape. Mountains erupted from nothingness, their peaks scraping against a sky that had just been born. Valleys carved themselves deep into fresh earth. Shorelines drew themselves along newly formed seas. The red earth, they called it. The land dyed crimson by Din's fire, by the sheer force of creation made manifest. But land alone is not a world. Matter without rules is just chaos in a different form. And so Nayru descended, the goddess of wisdom. Where Din brought power, Nayru brought order. Her wisdom, her profound understanding poured itself onto the world like water filling a vessel. She created the laws of nature, gravity, time, the rhythm of day and night, the cycle of seasons, science and magic, 2 sides of the same coin, both springing from Nayru's gift of order. Without her contribution, Din's mountains would have floated away. The seas would have flown upward. The sun, if there was a sun, would have crashed into the earth or frozen in place. Yet even a world with form and law is a dead world. A beautiful corpse perhaps, but lifeless nonetheless. That's where Furore entered the story, the goddess of courage. With her rich soul, she breathed life into the sterile perfection that Din and Nayru had created. Forests erupted across the land, trees reaching toward a sky that had only just learned how to hold clouds. Rivers teemed with fish, the air filled with birds. And across this world, the first creatures of the land began to stir. The Gorons, children of stone, the Zora, children of water, the forest spirits, the animals, and eventually the Hylians themselves, marked by their pointed ears, said to have been shaped that way to better hear the voices of the gods. The three goddesses had created a masterpiece, a world that would come to be known as Hyrule, though that name lay millennia in the future. But gods cannot remain in the worlds they create. Perhaps they're too vast to fit within the boundaries of a single reality. Perhaps their presence would overwhelm the delicate balance they'd worked so hard to establish. Or perhaps they simply had other worlds to birth, other canvases of chaos waiting to be shaped. Whatever the reason, the golden goddesses prepared to depart. But they didn't leave their creation defenseless. At the point where they ascended back to the heavens, at that precise spot where divine feet last touched mortal ground, they left something behind, a gift, a blessing, a curse, depending on who you ask. The Triforce, 3 golden triangles, arranged to form a larger triangle, the Triforce of Power, representing Din's strength, the Triforce of Wisdom, representing Nayru's knowledge, the Triforce of Courage, representing Furore's heart. Each piece contained a small but profound portion of the goddess's essence, not enough to make a mortal into a god, but enough to grant them godlike power. The ability to reshape reality according to their will, the power to grant any wish at all. You can imagine the danger. A relic of infinite power, sitting in the world, accessible to anyone who could find it. The goddesses understood this danger. They knew that mortals would covet such power, that wars would be fought over it, that the land they'd just created might be torn apart by those seeking to claim it. So they entrusted its protection to another deity, not one of the 3, but a goddess who would remain in this world. Hylia, the goddess of Hylia, though her title is somewhat circular, was chosen to be the guardian of the Triforce and the protector of the land. She wasn't as powerful as the golden goddesses. She was, in a sense, of a lower divine order, but she was present. She was accessible. She could act in ways the distant goddesses could not. The Triforce found its home in what would be called the Sacred Realm, a mirror dimension connected to the mortal world, a space that existed alongside Hyrule but separate from it. The Sacred Realm was said to be a reflection of the heart of whoever entered it. Enter with a pure heart, and the Sacred Realm would become a paradise. Enter with evil intentions, and it would twist into darkness, a corrupted reflection of the intruder's malice. But the Triforce itself had its own rules, its own peculiarities that would shape the destiny of Hyrule for all time. The most important rule was this: the Triforce could only be used by mortals. Gods, for all their power, could not wield it. They'd given up that right when they created it. This was by design. The Triforce was meant as a tool for the people of Hyrule, a way for them to shape their own destiny. Hylia could guard it, but she could never use it. The second rule was about balance. To claim the full Triforce and make a wish, one had to possess balance in their heart, an equal measure of power, wisdom, and courage. Such balance is extraordinarily rare. Most people lean toward one virtue over the others. A warrior might have courage and power, but lack wisdom. A scholar might have wisdom and courage, but lack power. A tyrant might have power and the cunning that passes for wisdom, but lack any courage beyond the base instinct for self-preservation. When someone lacking this balance touched the Triforce, it would split. The piece that resonated most with the person's dominant trait would remain with them, while the other two pieces would fly to whoever in the world most embodied those virtues. The Triforce of power would seek out the one with the greatest strength of will. The Triforce of wisdom would find the wisest soul. The Triforce of courage would gravitate toward the bravest heart. This splitting mechanism was both a safeguard and a curse. It prevented any one person from claiming absolute power, yes, but it also meant that the Triforce's power would be distributed among three people who might have very different ideas about how that power should be used. And it meant that to truly harness the Triforce's wish-granting ability, those three people would need to come together, combining their pieces into the whole. Throughout Hyrule's long history, we would see this splitting happen again and again. And almost always, the three pieces would go to the same three souls, or rather, to their reincarnations. The Triforce of power to Ganon, or Ganondorf, the King of Thieves, and later, the Demon King. The Triforce of wisdom to Princess Zelda, descendant of Hylia herself. The Triforce of courage to Link, the eternal hero, the sword arm of the goddess. This triumvirate, locked in an endless cycle of conflict and resolution, would define the Legend of Zelda. But the nature of their conflict, the specifics of how the Triforce split and how it was used, would vary dramatically depending on which branch of the timeline you examined. The unified timeline. Before everything changed. There was a time when Hyrule's history flowed in a single stream, before the fracture, before the split. A unified timeline where cause led to effect in the way we expect history to behave. This unified timeline stretched from the ancient days of Skyward Sword all the way to a critical moment in Ocarina of Time. The moment that would shatter history into three divergent paths. Let's walk through this unified history and see how the Triforce functioned before everything became complicated. In the era of Skyward Sword, Hyrule as we know it didn't exist yet. The land that would become Hyrule was simply called the Surface, and it was a place of danger and darkness. A demon army, led by a being known as Demise, the self-proclaimed Demon King, had risen to claim the world. More specifically, Demise sought the Triforce. He knew of its power, he coveted it, and he would tear the world apart to possess it. Goddess Hylia, fulfilling her role as the Triforce's guardian, took drastic action. She gathered the remaining humans, those who hadn't already fallen to Demise's forces, and lifted a chunk of land into the sky. This floating island, which would become Skyloft, sat far above the clouds, connected to nothing, accessible to no one without the power of flight. On Skyloft, Hylia placed the Triforce itself, hiding it in a temple that would one day be called the Skykeep. Then Hylia led the surface dwellers' resistance against Demise. The battle was brutal. Hylia was gravely wounded, and she realized something crucial. As a goddess, she could never use the Triforce. No matter how desperate the situation became, no matter how close Demise came to victory, she could not wield the ultimate weapon against him. So Hylia made a choice that would echo through all of time. She gave up her immortality. She arranged to be reborn as a mortal, as a Hylian. so that one day she could use the Triforce to destroy Demise. Before she died, she created a plan, a sword, and a chosen hero to wield it. The sword was the Goddess Sword, which would eventually become the Master Sword. The hero was Link, a young man from Skyloft who would prove himself worthy through trials of courage, wisdom, and power. And the plan involved Link recovering the Triforce from where Hylia had hidden it, then using it to destroy Demise once and for all. It almost worked. Link succeeded in his quest. He gathered all 3 pieces of the Triforce in the Sky Keep, brought them together, and made his wish for Demise to be destroyed. The Triforce granted this wish. Demise was vanquished. But the Demon King had one final act of defiance. With his dying breath, he placed a curse on Link and on Zelda, who was revealed to be Hylia reborn in mortal form. "Those like you," Demise said, his words dripping with malice and prophecy. "Those who share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero, they are eternally bound to this curse. An incarnation of my hatred shall ever follow your kind, dooming them to wander a blood-soaked sea of darkness for all time." This curse created the cycle we've seen play out in every Zelda game. Whenever a princess descended from Hylia would appear, and whenever a hero bearing the spirit of the goddess's chosen would arise, an incarnation of Demise's hatred would manifest to oppose them. Usually, this incarnation took the form of Ganon or Ganondorf, though not always. After Skyward Sword, the surface was safe for habitation once again. The people of Skyloft descended to establish a kingdom. They called this kingdom Hyrule, and they founded a royal family to lead it. The Triforce was moved to a new sacred realm, a pocket dimension accessible through the Temple of Time. The goddess's sword, having evolved into the Master Sword during Link's quest, was placed in a pedestal in that same temple, serving as both a key to the sacred realm and a seal to keep the unworthy out. Centuries passed. The Minish Cap tells of a time when a young Link, not the hero from Skyward Sword, but perhaps a distant descendant, faced a sorcerer named Vaiati. The Triforce played no direct role in that adventure. It remained hidden, protected, waiting. More centuries passed. 4 swords told of another Link, one who wielded a sword that could split him into 4 identical heroes. Again, the Triforce stayed in the background, its presence felt but not directly involved. Then came the era of Ocarina of Time, and here, the unified timeline reached its end. A Gerudo male named Ganondorf, born once every 100 years, as was the custom of his people, rose to power as the King of Thieves. The Gerudo lived in a harsh desert, while their neighbors in Hyrule enjoyed lush forests, clear water, fertile fields. Ganondorf saw this disparity and burned with resentment. He wanted what Hyrule had. More than that, he wanted the power to take it. Ganondorf learned of the Triforce. The old stories spoke of it, though by this time many dismissed it as myth. But Ganondorf believed, and he devised a plan to claim it. His plan required manipulating a young boy named Link. Ganondorf knew that the sacred realm could only be accessed by opening the Door of Time, which required 3 spiritual stones and the Ocarina of Time. He couldn't gather these himself. The people who possessed them would never give them to him willingly, but they might give them to an innocent child on a quest to save Hyrule. Link, a boy living in Kokiri Forest, with no fairy companion, was roused by Princess Zelda's prophetic dreams. She saw a dark cloud engulfing Hyrule and a boy emerging from the forest to stop it. She sent her attendant, Impa, to find this boy and set him on the path to gather the spiritual stones. Link succeeded, gathering the stones from the Deku Tree, from the Gorons of Death Mountain, and from the Zora Princess Ruto. With these in hand, and the Ocarina of Time given to him by Zelda herself, Link opened the door of time and drew the Master Sword from its pedestal. This was the moment Ganondorf had been waiting for. The instant Link pulled the sword, the door of time remained open, and Ganondorf walked through it, entering the sacred realm. He found the Triforce sitting in its chamber, waiting. Ganondorf reached out and touched it. The Triforce, sensing the imbalance in Ganondorf's heart, his overwhelming hunger for power at the expense of wisdom and courage, split into 3 pieces. The Triforce of power, resonating with Ganondorf's nature, remained with him. The Triforce of wisdom flew to Princess Zelda, whose royal blood and spiritual gifts made her its ideal bearer. The Triforce of courage sought out the one with the bravest heart in all of Hyrule, Link himself. But Link had a problem. He'd drawn the Master Sword too young. The sword, recognizing that this boy wasn't old enough to be the hero of time, sealed him away. For 7 years, Link slept in the sacred realm, his body frozen in time, waiting to grow into the hero he needed to be. During those 7 years, Ganondorf, wielding the Triforce of power even as the other pieces eluded him, conquered Hyrule. He transformed Hyrule Castle into a dark fortress. He twisted the sacred realm into a corrupted version of itself, a place that would come to be known as the Dark World. He sent his monsters to terrorize the land, and he searched desperately for Zelda, who had gone into hiding with her Triforce of wisdom, and for the Triforce of courage, whose location he could not determine because it resided within a sleeping boy in a sealed chamber. When Link finally awoke as an adult 7 years later, he found a Hyrule in ruin. The rest of the game involves Link awakening sages, recovering his stolen childhood, and eventually confronting Ganondorf in his tower. The final battle was fierce. Link, wielding the Master Sword and backed by the sages, fought Ganondorf and won, or at least he won in most timelines. When Ganondorf lay defeated, the 7 sages, including Zelda, combined their power to seal him away in the corrupted sacred realm, now a prison instead of a holy place. With Ganondorf sealed, Link still possessed the Triforce of courage on the back of his left hand. Zelda still bore the Triforce of wisdom, and Ganondorf, sealed away but alive, still clutched the Triforce of power. What happened next is where things get complicated, because Zelda, Princess of Hyrule and Sage of Time, had a decision to make. Link had lost 7 years of his life. 7 years stolen by a sword that judged him too young. 7 years spent in slumber while the world burned around him. Zelda, using the Ocarina of Time and her power over time itself, offered to send Link back to his childhood, back to before he drew the Master Sword. She could give him those 7 years back, let him live the childhood he'd lost. Link agreed. Zelda played the ocarina, and Link vanished from the adult era, sent back through time to the moment just after he'd warned Zelda about Ganondorf. This act, this one moment of kindness and attempted restoration, shattered the timeline into 3. The downfall timeline, when darkness claims victory The first branch of the timeline split is the one that troubles many scholars of Hyrule's history. It's the Downfall timeline, sometimes called the Fallen Hero timeline, and it's built on a dark premise. What if Link lost? In the other two timelines, we know Link defeated Ganondorf at the end of Ocarina of Time. The adult timeline and child timeline both proceed from that victory, but the Downfall timeline asks a different question. What if, during that final battle atop Ganondorf's castle, the hero of time was defeated? What if Ganondorf's power was too great, his Triforce of power too overwhelming, and Link fell? The moment of the split is debated. Some believe Link died during the battle itself, struck down by Ganon's blade. Others suggest he failed during some earlier confrontation, perhaps during one of the temple battles, and the timeline branched there. The official word from Hyrule Historia, the comprehensive timeline published by Nintendo, simply states that the hero of time was defeated. Not that he died, necessarily, just that he failed. Whatever the specifics, the result was the same. Without Link to stop him, Ganondorf claimed both the Triforce of Courage and the Triforce of Wisdom. With all three pieces in his possession, Ganondorf wielded the complete Triforce. He became truly unstoppable, transforming fully into Ganon, the Demon King, a monstrous boar creature of pure malice and power. Princess Zelda, having lost her Triforce of Wisdom to Ganon's conquest, gathered the remaining sages. Together, they performed a desperate act. They couldn't defeat Ganon, not with him wielding the full Triforce, but they could seal him. Using all their combined power, the sages imprisoned Ganon within the corrupted sacred realm, now twisted into the dark world by his evil wish to conquer Hyrule. The seal held. Ganon was trapped, along with the complete Triforce. But the damage was done. Hyrule was devastated. The kingdom fell into decline, never fully recovering from the years of Ganon's reign. This was the Imprisoning War, a conflict so brutal, so world-shaking that it became legend. Stories were told of a time when darkness nearly consumed the world, when monsters poured from a corrupted realm, when brave knights fell in battle defending sages who chanted sealing spells that took days to complete. Centuries passed. The stories of the Imprisoning War faded into myth. The sacred realm, once a holy place, was known only as the Dark World, a sealed prison. And inside that prison, Ganon brooded, his power vast but contained, his complete Triforce useless while he remained imprisoned. Then came the events of A Link to the Past. A new Ganon, or perhaps the same Ganon, having found a way to project his influence, began corrupting Hyrule once more. A wizard named Aghanim appeared in the court of Hyrule Castle. He claimed to have the power to stop a plague that was ravaging the kingdom. The king, desperate, gave Aghanim authority. But Aghanim's true goal was to break the seal on the Dark World and free his master, Ganon. Aghanim began kidnapping the 7 maidens, descendants of the sages who'd sealed Ganon. By sending them to the Dark World, he weakened the seal. It was a slow process, but it was working. A new Link arose to stop this. Not the hero of time. That Link's fate in this timeline remained ambiguous. This was a different boy, a descendant perhaps, bearing the same name, the same destiny. This Link pulled the Master Sword from its pedestal in the Lost Woods, became the new hero, and ventured into the Dark World to rescue the maidens. The Dark World itself was a twisted reflection of Hyrule. Every location had its counterpart, but corrupted. The lush forest became a skeleton forest. The peaceful village became a village of outcasts. And everywhere, Ganon's influence could be felt, a malevolent presence that touched everything. Link fought through temples, defeated Aghanim, and finally confronted Ganon himself in the Pyramid of Power. The battle was fierce. Link used silver arrows, the only weapons said to be able to pierce Ganon's hide, and eventually struck the Demon King down. When Ganon died, the Triforce remained. Link claimed it, standing before the golden relic in the chamber where Ganon had kept it. The Triforce, sensing Link's pure heart, granted him the ability to make a wish, and Link, looking at the devastation Ganon had caused, looking at the dark world that needed healing and the light world that needed restoration, made his wish: restore all that Ganon destroyed. The Triforce granted this wish. The dark world transformed back into the sacred realm. The people Ganon had turned into monsters returned to their true forms. Hyrule healed. The Triforce, its wish granted, presumably returned to the sacred realm, waiting for the next time it would be needed. Peace lasted for a time. Then Ganon was resurrected. This is the pattern of the downfall timeline. Ganon dies. Peace returns. Years pass, sometimes centuries. Then Ganon returns, resurrected by his followers, or by the cursed demise placed, or simply by his own refusal to stay dead. And each time he returns, a new Link arises to face him. After A Link to the Past came the Oracle Games. The Triforce, sensing a new threat, summoned Link to the lands of Holodrum and Labrynna. There, twin witches, Twin Rover, were working to resurrect Ganon through ritual sacrifice. Link thwarted their plans, but not before Ganon was partially revived. Link defeated him again, though Ganon's resurrection was incomplete, leaving him as a mindless beast rather than the cunning Demon King he'd been. Then came Link's Awakening, which took place entirely in a dream world, the Triforce playing no role as Link worked to awaken the Windfish and escape from an island that existed only in slumber. Centuries later came A Link Between Worlds. By this time, the Triforce had been split again. The royal family held the Triforce of Wisdom. Ganon, sealed in his own prison, possessed the Triforce of Power. And the Triforce of Courage resided in the sacred realm, dormant, waiting. This game introduced us to Lorule, a parallel kingdom to Hyrule. Lorule once had its own Triforce, but the royal family there, seeing how much strife and war their Triforce caused, decided to destroy it. This decision had catastrophic consequences. Without the Triforce, Lorule began to decay, falling apart at the seams as the fundamental force holding it together vanished. Princess Hilda of Lorule, desperate to save her kingdom, sought to steal Hyrule's Triforce. She couldn't do it herself, so she manipulated a sorcerer named Yuga, who fused with the imprisoned Ganon to become Yuga Ganon. Through a complex scheme, Yuga Ganon nearly succeeded in claiming all three pieces of the Triforce. Link, once again the hero, stopped them. He defeated Yuga Ganon and prevented the Triforce from being stolen. But rather than simply keeping it, rather than using it selfishly, Link and Zelda made a wish. They wished for Lorule's Triforce to be restored. The Triforce granted this wish, and Lorule was saved. Two kingdoms, two Triforces, two worlds in balance once more. Finally, the downfall timeline culminated in the original Legend of Zelda games. The first game saw Ganon once again terrorizing Hyrule, this time having stolen the Triforce of Power and shattered the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces. Princess Zelda had managed to break her Triforce before Ganon could claim it, hiding the pieces across Hyrule so that only a worthy hero could recover them. Link, the hero of this era, gathered the 8 pieces, reassembled the Triforce of Wisdom, and used it to defeat Ganon. He recovered the Triforce of Power from Ganon's ashes. The sequel, The Adventure of Link, told of an even older Princess Zelda, one who'd been placed in an enchanted sleep generations ago. To wake her, Link needed the Triforce of Courage, which had been hidden in the Great Palace. Link endured trials, fought his own shadow, and claimed the Triforce of Courage. With all 3 pieces united, Link woke the sleeping princess and restored peace to Hyrule. For a time. The Downfall timeline is characterized by this cycle of death and rebirth. Ganon dies, but never stays dead. The Triforce splits and reunites and splits again. Link claims victory, but knows on some level that his victory is temporary. Another hero will be needed. Another princess will face danger. Another cycle will begin. In this timeline, the Triforce is a prize, something to be won, lost, stolen, recovered. It's reactive rather than active, granting wishes when assembled, but unable to break the cycle of conflict on its own. Power, the virtue Ganon represents, is ascendant here, not because Ganon wins forever, but because power is what drives the conflict. Ganon's power must be met with Link's power. Wisdom and courage play their roles, but the timeline's character is defined by the endless struggle for power itself. The Child Timeline, a warning delivered. The second branch of the timeline split is called the Child Timeline, and it begins with an act of mercy. When Princess Zelda sent Link back to his childhood at the end of Ocarina of Time, she created a new timeline, one where Link retained his memories of the future, but had the chance to live those 7 stolen years. When Link arrived back in his own time, he found himself in the Temple of Time. The Master Sword was in its pedestal, as if he'd never drawn it. The door to the sacred realm was sealed, and young Princess Zelda was in her castle, still unaware of the full extent of Ganondorf's treachery. Link, bearing memories of a future that would now never come to pass, went to Zelda and warned her. He told her everything, how Ganondorf would betray the kingdom, how he would invade the sacred realm, how 7 years of darkness would follow, and Zelda, whose prophetic dreams had already warned her to be wary of Ganondorf, believed him. Together, Link and Zelda went to the King of Hyrule. They presented evidence of Ganondorf's intended treachery. The king, convinced, ordered Ganondorf's arrest. The arrest was meant to prevent disaster, but Ganondorf was not so easily contained. During his trial, or perhaps during his attempted execution at the Arbiter's grounds, something unexpected happened. Ganondorf possessed the Triforce of Power. How did he get it? The timeline had been altered. Link had returned from the future, bearing the Triforce of Courage. This adult Link's Triforce piece, present in a timeline where it shouldn't exist, caused a disturbance. The Triforce, sensing an imbalance, split itself. The Triforce of Courage remained with Link. The Triforce of Wisdom went to Zelda, as always, and the Triforce of Power, seeking the one in Hyrule with the greatest will to dominate, found Ganondorf. The sages present at Ganondorf's trial attempted to execute him. They drove a blade through his chest, but the Triforce of Power kept him alive. In his moment of death, the power of the gods manifested, and Ganondorf broke free. He killed one of the sages, the Sage of Water, before the others could react. The remaining sages, unable to kill Ganondorf but needing to stop him, banished him to the twilight. realm. This was a dimension of shadows, a place where light barely existed, home to the Twilight people. The sages created the Mirror of Twilight as a one-way portal to send Ganondorf there, and they sealed him in that realm, believing he could never return. They were wrong, but that's a story for later. With Ganondorf imprisoned in another dimension, Hyrule was safe. The kingdom prospered. Link, his warning delivered and the threat averted, left Hyrule. He went searching for a friend, his fairy companion Navi, who had departed at the end of his original quest. Link's search would lead him to Termina, the parallel world of Majora's Mask, but that's another tale entirely. Years passed, decades, centuries. The Triforce remained split, the three pieces held by their bearers or passed down to descendants. The royal family guarded the knowledge of the Triforce and its splitting, keeping the secret that three pieces of ultimate power existed in the world. Then came the era of Twilight Princess. In the Twilight realm, Ganondorf had not been idle. He'd found a way to manipulate one of the Twilight, a creature named Zant, who'd been passed over for leadership of his people. Ganondorf gave Zant power, magical abilities beyond anything the Twilight normally possessed. In exchange, Zant served as Ganondorf's agent. Zant overthrew the true ruler of the Twilight realm, Princess Midna, transforming her into an imp and seizing control. Then, using the Twilight Mirror that the sages had created, Zant began invading Hyrule, pulling the light world into shadow, transforming regions into twilight where the normal inhabitants became spirits and monsters roamed free. A new Link arose to face this threat. This Link was a descendant of the Hero of Time, proven by the fact that he bore the Triforce of Courage on the back of his hand. When the twilight covered his village, Link was not transformed into a spirit like everyone else. The Triforce of Courage protected him, instead, transforming him into a sacred wolf. This Link's quest involved restoring light to Hyrule's provinces, aided by Princess Midna. Along the way, he confronted Zant in the Twilight realm. During their battle, Zant revealed the truth. He was merely a puppet. The real power behind the invasion was Ganondorf. Ganondorf, still possessing the Triforce of power, had survived his banishment. More than that, he'd thrived in a way, using Zant to achieve what he couldn't do from his prison. When Zant was defeated, Midna was restored to her true form, and the Twilight Mirror was shattered to prevent further invasions. But Ganondorf wasn't finished. In the game's climax, he possessed Zelda, using her body as a vessel. Link fought the possessed princess, careful not to harm her until Midna intervened. Midna, using Zelda's Triforce of Wisdom, which Zelda willingly transferred to her, forced Ganondorf out. The final battle took place in Hyrule Field. Ganondorf, in his true form, massive and terrible, fought Link. The clash was epic. Ganondorf wielded dark magic and brutal physical force. Link had the Master Sword and the power of the Light Spirits. In the end, Link drove the Master Sword through Ganondorf's chest, in the exact spot where the sages had struck him centuries before. This time, the Triforce of Power could not save him. As Link twisted the blade, the Triforce symbol on Ganondorf's hand faded. Power left him. And Ganondorf, the Demon King, the eternal adversary, died. His final words were defiant. He remained standing even as life left him, refusing to fall, a monument to his own will, even in death. With Ganondorf finally dead, truly dead in a way he'd never been before, Hyrule entered a new age. The Triforce pieces presumably passed to new bearers or returned to the sacred realm. Peace reigned, but Demise's curse was not broken. Generation later, another Ganondorf was born among the Gerudo. This one discovered a dark trident, and touching it, he was transformed into a new Ganon. He attacked Hyrule once more, leading to the events of Four Swords adventures. This Ganon was different from the Ocarina of Time Ganondorf. He was a reincarnation, not a resurrection. The original Ganondorf had been killed permanently in Twilight Princess. This new Ganon, born from the curse, had to start over, building his power from scratch. Link, or rather 4 links created by the power of the Four Sword, defeated this new Ganon and sealed him away. The cycle continued, as Demise's curse ensured it would. But the nature of the threat had changed. Ganon was no longer immortal, not truly. He could be reborn, but each rebirth was a fresh start, without the accumulated power of his previous lives. The child timeline is characterized by prevention and intervention. Link's warning stopped the worst from happening. Ganondorf was caught early, before he could conquer Hyrule. The 7 years of darkness never occurred. The Triforce was split, but it split as an almost accidental consequence of time travel, not because Ganondorf deliberately sought it. In this timeline, courage is the defining virtue. Link's courage to return and warn Zelda. His courage to face Ganondorf even knowing the monster he would become. The courage of the sages to banish an immortal demon to another realm. And finally, the courage of a descendant to finish what the hero of time started, to kill Ganondorf permanently. The Triforce here acts as a stabilizing force. Its pieces find their bearers and stay with them, passed down through generations. It doesn't shatter into 8 pieces or get sealed away in a corrupted realm. It simply exists, 3 pieces held by 3 bloodlines, maintaining a balance even as conflict continues. The adult timeline, a world submerged. The third branch of the timeline split is perhaps the most dramatic. The adult timeline continues from the moment Zelda sent Link back to his childhood. In that instant, the adult world lost its hero. Link vanished, pulled back, through time, and the adult era he left behind had to continue without him. At first, this wasn't a problem. Ganondorf was sealed in the corrupted sacred realm. The 7 sages maintained the seal. Zelda ruled as princess, guiding Hyrule's recovery. The Triforce remained split. Ganondorf possessed the Triforce of power even in his imprisonment. Zelda held the Triforce of wisdom and the Triforce of courage. That's where things got complicated. When Link traveled back to his childhood, the Triforce of courage that had been housed in his adult self didn't go with him. It couldn't. The Triforce is bound to the world it exists in. So when Link departed, the Triforce of courage lost its bearer. It shattered into 8 pieces and scattered itself throughout Hyrule, hiding deep in the ocean, waiting for a new hero to gather it. For generations, Hyrule prospered. The people rebuilt. Stories were told of the hero of time, the boy who'd saved the kingdom, though his name was forgotten. The legend remained, but the specific became general. People remembered a hero in green who'd wielded a sword against evil, but the details faded. Then disaster struck. The seal on the sacred realm weakened. The exact reason has never been clear. Perhaps it was simply time, the natural decay of even magical barriers. Or perhaps Ganondorf in his prison had been working to erode it. Whatever the cause, the seal broke. Ganondorf escaped, still possessing the Triforce of power. Transformed into his monstrous Ganon form, he erupted from his prison with wrath and fury. He remembered his defeat. He remembered being sealed away. And he remembered the promise he'd made to the sages. You will regret this. Mark my words. One day, when this seal is broken, that is when I will exterminate your descendants, as long as the Triforce of power is in my hand. Ganon made good on that promise. His forces swept across Hyrule. Monsters that had been absent for generations suddenly appeared in swarms. The kingdom's military, unprepared for a threat of this magnitude, couldn't hold them back. Castle towns fell. People fled to the mountains seeking safety in high places. And the people prayed. They prayed for the hero of time to return, for the boy in green to appear once more and save them, as legend said he would. They waited for the master sword to be drawn, for a hero to awaken, but no hero came. The hero of time was gone, vanished to another timeline. The Triforce of courage was shattered and hidden. And while Demise's curse ensured that eventually a new hero would be born, that process takes time. The hero's spirit must reincarnate. The right soul must find the right body. And Ganon wasn't waiting. He was acting now, conquering now, destroying now. The people's prayers went unanswered, or rather, they were answered in a way no one expected. The golden goddesses, watching from their distant realm, made a decision. They couldn't allow Ganon to conquer Hyrule and then, presumably, spread his influence to other lands. But without a hero to stop him, conventional means would fail. So the goddesses chose a drastic solution. They flooded the world. The gods instructed certain people, those destined to survive, to flee to the highest mountaintops. Then they summoned a rain that didn't stop. Water fell from the sky in torrents. It filled the valleys, covered the plains, climbed the foothills. It rose and rose until only the tallest peaks remained above water, and then it rose some more. Hyrule Castle was submerged. The Temple of Time sank beneath the waves. The towns, the forests, the fields, all disappeared under an endless ocean. The goddesses created a seal over the entire kingdom, freezing it in time, creating a bubble of air around the land so that it would be preserved rather than destroyed, locked away at the ocean's bottom. Ganon was sealed with it, frozen mid-conquest, his monsters petrified where they stood. Even the Master Sword, still in its pedestal, was caught in the time seal. As long as the sword remained in place, the seal would hold, and Hyrule would remain frozen in its moment of catastrophe. The mountaintops became islands. The people who'd fled there became islanders, building new lives on these tiny patches of land scattered across a vast sea. They called it the Great Sea, and they learned to sail it, to fish it, to live with it. Generations passed, and the old stories faded. Children were told legends of a kingdom beneath the waves, but most didn't believe it. It was just a story. One tradition remained. On some islands, when a boy came of age, he was dressed in green as a tribute to the hero of time. It was a way of saying, "May you be as brave as the legendary hero." They didn't expect it to mean anything beyond symbolism. Then, hundreds of years after the flood, Link was born on Outset Island. This Link had no connection to the hero of time. He wasn't a reincarnation or a descendant. He was just a boy celebrating his birthday by receiving the hero's clothes. But when his sister was kidnapped by a giant bird, Link set out to rescue her, and in doing so, he began a journey that would reveal the truth about the world. Link learned about the kingdom beneath the waves. He discovered that Princess Zelda still lived, reincarnated into a pirate captain named Tetra who sailed the Great Sea. He found that Ganondorf had broken free from the underwater seal and was trying to reach the Triforce to wish for Hyrule's return so he could rule over it. But to stop Ganondorf, Link needed the Triforce of Courage, and that meant gathering its 8 fragments from the ocean floor. This quest was arduous. Link had to find Triforce charts that showed where each piece was hidden. He then had to dive into the deep ocean and retrieve them. Each piece was guarded, each recovery a challenge, but Link succeeded, and the Triforce of Courage reformed, marking itself on the back of his hand. He was the hero of winds, not of time, but the courage was the same. The final confrontation took place in Hyrule Castle, at the bottom of the ocean, in a sealed chamber of air. Link and Tetra, revealed as Princess Zelda, faced Ganondorf. The Demon King had grown weary. Centuries of imprisonment, followed by the effort to break the seal, had not broken his will, but had tempered it into something almost philosophical. Ganondorf spoke of the desert where he was raised, of the harsh winds that dried the skin and the endless sun that beat down without mercy, of how he'd looked across that desert and seen Hyrule, green and lush and prosperous. "I coveted that wind," he said, "the wind that blew across Hyrule, gentle and life-giving, not harsh and cruel like the desert wind." The battle began. Ganondorf nearly won, extracting the Triforce pieces from Link and Zelda, combining them with his own Triforce of power. He held the complete Triforce, ready to make his wish. Then a hand touched it before his. King Daphne's no Hansen, Hyrule, the last king of the original Hyrule, had secretly entered the chamber. He was the king of Red Lions, the boat that had guided Link throughout his journey. And in the critical moment, he reached the Triforce first. "Gods of the Triforce," the king said, his voice heavy with centuries of regret and determination. "Hear that which I desire. Hope. I desire hope for these children. Give them a future. Wash away this ancient land of Hyrule. Let it drown with me." The Triforce listened. The seal over Hyrule Castle began to break. Water started pouring in from above. Ganondorf, realizing what was happening, flew into a rage. The kingdom he'd fought so hard to claim was being destroyed before his eyes. Link and Zelda fought Ganondorf one final time. The battle was desperate, fighting against a demon king while the ocean collapsed around them. In the end, Link drove the Master Sword through Ganondorf's skull. The demon king turned to stone, frozen in death, his Triforce of power fading as water washed over everything. Link and Tetra escaped, pulled to safety by the king's final act of magic. The king remained below, letting himself be buried with the Hyrule he'd failed to protect. The Triforce scattered once more, presumably returning to wherever godly relics go when their purpose is complete. Link and Tetra sailed away from the spot where Hyrule had drowned. They set out to find new land, to establish a new Hyrule. Their journey led to Phantom Hourglass and eventually to Spirit Tracks, where a new kingdom was founded far from the ocean that had swallowed the old world. The adult timeline is defined by sacrifice and reinvention. Wisdom chose to destroy rather than let evil claim victory. King Daphne's wish embodied this: wisdom to know when something must end. The Triforce here acted not to grant power or preserve the status quo, but to facilitate necessary change, even painful change. In this timeline, the Triforce was used to its ultimate purpose: to make an impossible choice, to reshape reality in a fundamental way. not to conquer or restore, but to wash away the past and create space for a new future. The Triforces mirror what each timeline reveals. Having walked through the 3 timelines, having seen how the Triforce functioned in each branch of Hyrule's fractured history, a pattern emerges. Each timeline doesn't just show us different events. Each timeline emphasizes a different aspect of the Triforce itself, reflecting the virtue that defined that branch's creation. Consider the Downfall timeline. This branch exists because Ganon defeated Link, claiming the complete Triforce through overwhelming power, and throughout the Downfall timeline, power is the dominant force. Ganon's power to corrupt the sacred realm, the sages' combined power to seal him, Link's power to defeat him repeatedly, and Ganon's power to return again and again. The Triforce in this timeline is a prize, something to be claimed through strength. Even when wisdom and courage play their roles, they're reactive. Zelda uses wisdom to hide and plan, but she's responding to Ganon's power. Link uses courage to fight, but he's opposing Ganon's power. The initiative, the driving force of events, comes from the pursuit and use of power. The Triforce of power, held by Ganon more often than not in this timeline, is ascendant. It defines the timeline's character. This doesn't mean Ganon wins, but it means that power is the lens through which all conflict is viewed. Victory is achieved through power. Threats arise through power. Even restoration, when Link claims the Triforce and wishes for healing, is an exercise of power. Now consider the Child timeline. This branch exists because of a deliberate choice to prevent disaster. Link returned to warn Zelda. They acted proactively. Ganondorf was stopped early, before he could achieve his full conquest. The 7 years of darkness never happened in this timeline. Courage defines this branch. The courage to change fate. The courage to act on knowledge of a terrible future and prevent it. When the Triforce split in this timeline, it did so as an almost accidental consequence, a side effect of Link's courageous act of time travel. Throughout the Child timeline, characters are defined by their bravery. Link's courage to face threats, the sage's courage to banish a demon they couldn't kill, Midna's courage to sacrifice her realm's connection to Hyrule to prevent further invasion, the hero of Twilight's courage to strike down Ganondorf permanently, ending a cycle that had continued for centuries. The Triforce of courage, passed down through Link's bloodline in this timeline, represents continuity. Link's descendants carry his legacy. The courage isn't fleeting or scattered, it's hereditary, a torch passed from generation to generation. Finally, the adult timeline. This branch exists because Zelda used her wisdom to spare Link his fate, to give him back his stolen childhood. Her wisdom created the split, and wisdom defines this timeline's relationship with the Triforce. The most obvious example is King Daphne's final wish. It took profound wisdom to wish for Hyrule's destruction, to understand that sometimes the past must be released, that clinging to what once was can prevent what needs to be. The king didn't wish for power to defeat Ganon. He didn't wish for courage to fight. He wished for hope through letting go. Throughout the adult timeline, we see wisdom in choices made. Zelda's wisdom to recognize Tetra's identity, Link's wisdom to know that gathering the Triforce of courage was necessary before confronting Ganon, the wisdom of the goddesses themselves to flood the world rather than let it fall to evil. The Triforce of wisdom, carried by the royal family and eventually by Tetra, guides the timeline's major decisions. When the complete Triforce is finally assembled in that underwater chamber, it's wisdom that claims it first, not power or courage. Each timeline split represents a triumph of its defining virtue. The downfall timeline shows what happens when power wins at the cost of everything else. The child timeline shows what happens when courage acts to change fate. The adult timeline shows what happens when wisdom chooses sacrifice over preservation. But here's the deeper truth. The Triforce itself never changes. It's the same artifact in all three timelines, same three pieces, same golden glow, same ability to grant wishes. What changes is how people interact with it, what they seek from it, how they understand it. The Triforce is a mirror. It reflects the heart of whoever touches it, yes, but on a grand scale, it reflects the heart of entire timelines. The downfall. Timeline's heart is the struggle for power, and the Triforce reflects that by being constantly fought over, seized, lost, and claimed again. The child timeline's heart is the legacy of courage, and the Triforce reflects that by being passed down through bloodlines. The adult timeline's heart is the wisdom to accept endings, and the Triforce reflects that by facilitating the most significant ending of all, the drowning of Hyrule itself. This isn't a flaw in the timeline structure, it's the point. The splitting of the timeline into three branches wasn't just a narrative convenience. It was a way of exploring the Triforce's three aspects separately, of showing what a world looks like when one virtue dominates. And perhaps, just perhaps, the splitting was inevitable. The Triforce is about balance, about the equal measure of power, wisdom, and courage. When Ganondorf touched it in Ocarina of Time, he lacked that balance, so the Triforce split. But maybe reality itself lacked that balance. Maybe history itself was too unbalanced, too focused on one thing or another. So when Link traveled through time, when that profound disruption occurred, reality responded the way the Triforce always does when faced with imbalance. It split. Three timelines, three virtues, three different explorations of what the Triforce means. The Wild Era, where all timelines converge or diverge. Now we reach the most controversial, most debated, most fascinating part of the Triforce's story across timelines, the era of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. These games, set in a Hyrule that feels both familiar and utterly new, have sparked endless debate among scholars of the timeline. Where do they fit? After which timeline branch? Or do they somehow exist after all three? The official word from Nintendo is both clear and frustratingly vague. When asked about Breath of the Wild's placement, series producer Eiji Aonuma said, "Well, of course it's at the very end. But I get what you're asking. It's which timeline is it the end of?" And director Hidemaru Fujibayashi added, "That's up to the player's imagination, isn't it?" Later, an official timeline updated on Nintendo's Japanese website placed both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom at the very end of the timeline, but disconnected from the three branches. They sit alone, separated by a gap marked period of decline. This placement, or lack of specific placement, tells us something crucial about the Triforce's nature in these games. It's barely present at all. In Breath of the Wild, the Triforce is never mentioned by name. It appears in visual motifs, carved into walls, embedded in the design of locations. You can see its symbol in the Forgotten Temple, in shrines, in ancient stonework. But no character speaks of it. No quest involves finding it. No power is derived from it. Princess Zelda, facing Calamity Ganon's first appearance 100 years before the game's events, doesn't pray to the Triforce. She prays to the goddess Hylia. When she finally awakens her sealing power, the power that lets her contain Ganon, it manifests as a golden light. Some have speculated this light represents the Triforce of wisdom, and Zelda does bear a mark on her hand that could be interpreted as such. But the game never confirms this. Link, the hero of this era, bears no mark of the Triforce of courage. He doesn't seek it, doesn't need it to face Ganon. The Master Sword is his key weapon, yes, but the Triforce itself is conspicuously absent from his quest. And Ganon, or rather Calamity Ganon, is a mindless force in Breath of the Wild. Not a cunning demon king, but a manifestation of pure malice, of hatred given form. There's no indication he possesses the Triforce of power, no moment where that artifact's presence gives him an edge. Tears of the Kingdom complicates things further. In this game's backstory, revealed through memory sequences, we learn about an ancient founding of Hyrule. A Zonai king named Rauru married a Hylian queen named Sonia, and together they established the kingdom. This was, by all accounts, presented as the founding of Hyrule, not a refounding. But if Rauru's era was the original founding, that places it before Skyward Sword, before the era when we know Hyrule was first established. This creates an apparent contradiction, one that's fueled countless theories. During this ancient era, Ganondorf appeared, not as a reincarnation or resurrection, but as an original Gerudo king seeking power. He pledged loyalty to Rauru, then betrayed him, killing Queen Sonia to steal her power. This Ganondorf sought not the Triforce, but something called a secret stone, a Zonai artifact that amplified the bearer's innate magic. The game never mentions the Triforce, not once. In a game deeply concerned with ancient power, with the founding of Hyrule, with a war between light and darkness, the Triforce is absent. Instead, we have secret stones. Instead of the 3 golden virtues, we have 7 sages with different elemental powers. What does this mean for the Triforce's nature? There are several theories, each with its proponents and its problems. The convergence theory suggests that the 3 timelines eventually merged back into one. Through some unknown mechanism, perhaps involving the Triforce itself, the split realities collapsed into a single history. Evidence for this includes the presence of elements from all 3 timelines in Breath of the Wild. Rock salt, described as a remnant of an ancient sea, could reference the Great Sea. The presence of both Rito and Zora, which should be contradictory since the Rito evolved from Zora in the adult timeline. References to multiple games across different branches. If the timelines merged, the Triforce might have been reconciled. Its 3 aspects, scattered across 3 realities, finally reunited in a single world. This could explain why it's not actively involved in Breath of the Wild's events. Perhaps it's resting, whole and complete in the sacred realm, no longer split, no longer needed for individual heroes or villains. The refounding theory proposes that Tears of the Kingdom's flashbacks don't show the original founding of Hyrule, but a refounding long after the events of the other games. After some massive catastrophe, referred to as the Period of Decline, the original Hyrule was destroyed. Rauru and Sonia established a new kingdom, naming it Hyrule, in honor of the old legends. Not realizing, or perhaps knowing full well, they were walking in the footsteps of ancient history. Under this theory, the Triforce might have been lost in whatever cataclysm destroyed the old Hyrule. The secret stones are a new form of power, not replacing the Triforce, but filling the void it left. The Zonai, an ancient race possibly from another dimension or time period, brought their own magical technology, their own understanding of power that didn't rely on the Golden Goddess's relic. The separate timeline theory goes further, suggesting Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom exist in a fourth timeline, completely separate from the other three. This new branch might have split off earlier than Ocarina of Time, or it might represent a soft reboot of the series where Nintendo wanted to start fresh without being bound by decades of accumulated lore. In this scenario, the Triforce might exist, but with different rules, a different history, or it might not exist at all, replaced by the secret stones and Zonai magic as the primary supernatural force in this version of Hyrule. Each theory has merit, each has problems, and Nintendo's refusal to clarify, their insistence that placement is up to the player's imagination, suggests they might be intentionally leaving it ambiguous. But let's focus on what we can say for certain about the Triforce's role, or lack thereof, in the Wild Era. First, if the Triforce does exist in this era, it's not actively splitting and seeking bearers. There's no moment where Ganon claims the Triforce of Power or Link receives the Triforce of Courage. If these artifacts exist, they're either united and dormant, or they're so lost to history that no one seeks them. Second, power in the Wild Era operates on different principles. Zelda's sealing power comes from her bloodline connection to Hylia, not from the Triforce of Wisdom. Link's strength comes from ancient Shaker or Zonai technology, from shrine challenges and spirit orbs, not from a divine blessing of courage. Even Ganon's power, when he was Ganondorf in the distant past, came from a secret stone, not from touching the Triforce. Third, the themes of power, wisdom, and courage are still present, but expressed differently. Zelda must find the wisdom to understand her role and activate her powers. Link must have the courage to face Calamity Ganon after 100-year slumber. Ganondorf's hunger for power drives his betrayal of Rauru. But these themes are internalized, character-driven, not externalized into three pieces of a golden relic. What might this mean for the Triforce's true nature? Perhaps the Triforce was always a metaphor, not just a physical object, but a representation of fundamental forces. Power, wisdom, courage. These aren't things that can be contained in an artifact. They're aspects of existence itself. The Triforce, as a physical object, was one way of expressing this truth, but not the only way. In the other timelines, in the earlier eras, people needed the Triforce. They needed that concrete representation. They needed to see power and wisdom and courage as things that could be claimed, held, lost, and found. The Triforce gave them that. But by the era of Breath of the Wild, perhaps Hyrule had moved beyond that need. Power wasn't something you possessed, it was something you cultivated. Wisdom wasn't a piece of gold on your hand. It was understanding earned through trial. Courage wasn't a gift from the gods. It was a choice made in the face of fear. The Triforce's absence in the Wild Era might not be an absence at all. It might be an evolution. The relic itself became unnecessary because its lessons had been internalized. Link doesn't need the Triforce of courage because he is courageous. Zelda doesn't need the Triforce of wisdom because she has learned wisdom. And Ganondorf, well, Ganondorf's hunger for power remains, but he seeks it through other means because the old ways, the old artifacts, are gone. Or perhaps simpler still, the Triforce is resting. After tens of thousands of years of conflict, after being split and assembled and split again, after granting wishes that drowned kingdoms and restored wastelands, the Triforce has returned to the sacred realm. Whole, complete, dormant, waiting for a time when it might be needed again, when Hyrule faces a threat so great that divine intervention becomes necessary, when the balance between power, wisdom, and courage is so disrupted that only the combined essence of the golden goddesses can restore it. That time hasn't come yet. Not in Breath of the Wild, where ancient technology and the sage's efforts were sufficient. Not in Tears of the Kingdom, where Link and Zelda's combined strength, aided by the sages and by Rauru's final sacrifice, was enough to defeat Ganondorf. But if Demise's curse remains, if the cycle continues, then eventually, inevitably, the Triforce will be needed once more. And when that time comes, it will be there. Golden, eternal, unchanged by the passage of eons. The Eternal Triangle. Conclusions about divine power. We've traveled through time. We've seen the Triforce at its creation and followed it through every branch of history. We've watched it split and reunite, be fought over and hidden away, grant wishes that saved kingdoms and wishes that drowned them. Now, at the end of this journey through Hyrule's fractured chronology, what have we learned about the true nature of the Triforce? The first lesson is about constancy. The Triforce never changes. Same three pieces, same powers, same rules about balance and splitting. It doesn't matter if you're in the Downfall timeline watching Ganon wield the complete Triforce to corrupt the Sacred Realm, or in the adult timeline seeing it break into 8 pieces and hide in the ocean, or in the child timeline observing it distributed among 3 bloodlines. The Triforce itself remains what it has always been, the crystallized essence of the Golden Goddess's power. This constancy is remarkable when you consider how much everything else changes. Hyrule rises and falls and drowns and is refounded. Link and Zelda are reincarnated dozens of times, each incarnation slightly different. Ganon dies and resurrects, transforming from cunning warlock to mindless beast and back again. The Master Sword gets broken and reforged, but the Triforce endures. The second lesson is about reflection. The Triforce doesn't impose its nature on the world. It reflects the world's nature back at itself. In a timeline defined by the struggle for power, the Triforce becomes a prize in that struggle. In a timeline defined by courage passed through generations, the Triforce's pieces become heirlooms. In a timeline defined by wisdom that accepts endings, the Triforce facilitates the most profound ending of all. This reflective quality makes the Triforce a perfect narrative device. It's not just a MacGuffin, a thing that characters want because the plot requires them to want it. The Triforce is meaningful because it shows us who the characters are. When Ganondorf touches it, and it splits, we understand his imbalance. When Link reassembles the Triforce of Courage from 8 fragments, we understand his determination. When King Daphnes uses the complete Triforce to wash away his kingdom, we understand his wisdom. The third lesson is about balance. The Triforce's entire existence revolves around the concept of balance between power, wisdom, and courage. When these 3 virtues exist in equal measure, the Triforce can be wielded safely. When they're imbalanced, the Triforce splits, forcing multiple people to embody different virtues. But balance isn't just about individuals. The 3 timelines themselves represent an exploration of imbalance. What does a world look like when power dominates? The Downfall timeline shows us. What about when courage takes precedence? The child timeline explores that. And wisdom? The adult timeline demonstrates wisdom's ultimate expression. By splitting history into 3 branches, the Zelda timeline essentially splits reality the same way the Triforce splits when touched by an imbalanced heart. Reality itself was imbalanced after Ocarina of Time. The time travel, the manipulation of fate, Link's dual existence as both child and adult. The split wasn't a mistake. It was reality, responding to imbalance the only way it could, by dividing into separate balanced states. The fourth lesson is about necessity. The Triforce is most prominent in Hyrule's history when it's most needed. In times of great crisis, when the kingdom's very survival hangs in the balance, the Triforce becomes central to the story. Heroes seek it, villains covet it, sages protect it. But in times of relative peace, the Triforce fades into the background. This explains its absence in some games and its prominence in others. It's not that the Triforce disappears. It's that when Hyrule doesn't need divine intervention, the Triforce isn't invoked. People solve their problems through conventional means. But when Ganon claims the complete Triforce and corrupts the sacred realm, when Hyrule needs washing away to save it from evil, when a sleeping princess requires divine power to awaken, the Triforce is there. The fifth, and perhaps most important lesson, is about interpretation. The Triforce means different things to different people. To Ganondorf, it's a tool for domination, a means to achieve his vision of the world. To Zelda, it's a sacred responsibility, something to protect and use wisely. To Link, it's often something he doesn't seek for itself, but finds through the course of being heroic. The Triforce doesn't judge these interpretations. It doesn't declare Ganondorf's view wrong and Link's view right. When Ganondorf touches the complete Triforce, it would grant his wish if he could hold all three pieces. It's the splitting mechanism that prevents this. But that splitting is based on internal imbalance, not moral judgment. The Triforce doesn't care if your wish is to conquer the world or save it. It only cares if you have balance within yourself. This moral neutrality is both the Triforce's greatest strength and its greatest danger. It can be used for good or evil. Its power is absolute, but its guidance is absent. The Golden Goddesses left this tool behind without an instruction manual, without a safety lock, without a conscience to prevent misuse. That's where Hylia came in, why a guardian goddess was necessary. And that's why the cycle of Link, Zelda, and Ganon continues. Because the Triforce itself can't stop evil. It can only grant wishes, split when touched by imbalance, and wait to be claimed. It takes people to decide how the Triforce will be used. It takes heroes to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. As we stand here at the end of our journey through time, looking at the Triforce's place in Hyrule's history, one thing becomes clear. The Triforce is eternal, but its story is unfinished. The Wild Era's ambiguity about the Triforce's location and significance doesn't diminish it. If anything, it enriches the myth. The Triforce has passed from physical necessity to spiritual presence. It's there in the architecture of ancient temples, in the symbol on Link's hand when he claims the Master Sword in some timelines, in the golden glow of Zelda's sealing power. Whether the three timelines have converged into one, or whether the Wild Era represents a completely new branch, or whether we're looking at a refounded Hyrule long after the original kingdom's fall, the truth of the Triforce remains unchanged. Power, wisdom, courage. These three virtues define not just a golden relic, but the heart of the entire Legend of Zelda series. Every Link embodies courage. Every Zelda embodies wisdom. Every Ganon embodies power. And in their eternal cycle, in their unending conflict and resolution, they bring the Triforce to life even when the physical artifact is nowhere to be seen. The Triforce doesn't need to be visible to be present. It doesn't need to be claimed to have influence. It exists in the choices people make, in the balance they seek or fail to find, in the virtues they embody or betray. This is the true nature of the Triforce across different timelines. It's not just an object, it's a principle. It's not just a power source, it's a mirror, a test, a gift, and a curse all at once. It represents the best and worst of what mortals can become when granted divine power. And it will endure long after we've finished analyzing timelines and debating placements. The golden triangles will continue to shine in the darkness, waiting for the next hero to seek them, the next princess to protect them, the next demon to covet them. Because as long as there's a Hyrule, as long as there's evil to face and darkness to overcome, there will be power, wisdom, and courage. And where those three virtues exist, the Triforce exists too, eternal and unchanging, a fragment of the gods in a world of mortals. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore of the Triforce across Hyrule's timelines, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. There's so much more to explore in the Legend of Zelda universe, and I'm just getting started. Let me know in the comments which timeline you find most fascinating, or if you have your own theories about where Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom fit into the grand chronology. Until next time, may the Triforce guide you.